It's the people who have pain, even if it's pain that you just showed them, they just discovered with you, that little bit of compression and that awareness, like, oh, something's going on under here that I didn't know about. I really want to address it.
Hey, it's Brad, and boy, am I happy you're here. If this is your first time, I'm really glad you found us. You're not going to be disappointed. And if you've been here before, welcome back. This is Pain to Performance. Let's jump into today's conversation. So, you've been doing the reps. You've been showing up. You've been following the program, and you're still in pain. And nobody can tell you why. What if I told you there is an entire system in your body that most people have never been taught about? A system that connects every muscle, every joint, every nerve. And if you ignore it, no amount of deadlifts or core work is going to fix what actually hurts. Today, I'm sitting down with Shari Zisk. She has a degree in human kinetics. She's a level 4 MELT method instructor, and she spent 20 years in traditional fitness before discovering that fascia changed everything she thought that she knew. Let's get into it. Shari, welcome to Pain to Performance.
Hi, Brad. So great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Shari, I have to tell you, this is the episode that I've been waiting to do. Your work in fascia, like specifically fascial hydration and nervous system awareness, sits right next to what I do day to day with neuromuscular therapy. And so I'm on the treatment table, you're on the gym floors, and I think we are seeing the same exact problems just from different angles though. So I'm really excited to have this conversation, and I just really can't wait to dive into it.
Great. I'm so excited also.
Perfect. Beautiful. So, Shari, you have this degree in human kinetics and over 20 years in fitness. I mean, that's just a long time. But before we get into the fascial shift, if you will, I want to go back to the beginning for you. So what pulled you into this work? What was it about the human body that maybe made you say, this is what I'm going to do with my life?
It's a long, winding story, but Brad, I'm just an old school bodybuilder. I started weight training when I was 15 years old on the Universal Gym in my high school, part of the basketball team. And I noticed changes. I got stronger. I noticed changes in my physique, and it was empowering. So when I was 15, I asked my parents for a gym membership to our local fitness center. And so I got this 3-month membership, and I've been lifting heavy weights ever since. And all through high school, lifted weights, and I kind of got schooled by the local bodybuilders. So they were lifting, they were watching Pumping Iron, they were lifting like Arnold. So I kind of finished high school in bodybuilder mode. And I went off to university, and I was going to study business, and I got into the business school. And my first year in university, I was spending lots of time in the university fitness center, and I found that I was one of the only females on the weights, the free weight side of the gym. There was lots of women in the gym, and they were all doing the cardio, and I was one of the only few over there. And eventually I started taking my roommates and friends and classmates, showing them around the weight room. And so I ultimately discovered this love for movement and what it could do for me, and then teaching it. I finally got to teach it to people, and just spending a lot of time. And after my first year of business school, or first year of university, I switched over into the human kinetics program. And for 4 years, I lived and breathed human kinetics. I did every fitness certification I could participate in. And I was at such a young age, I had developed this insight into the ability to or the knowledge that I had mastery over my body, over how it looked and how it felt, how it performed. When I was playing basketball and I started strength training, I could run faster and I could shoot further. And then when I ended up in university and I was lifting weights and getting stronger and heavier, and I was surrounded by many of the athletes training in the gym also, and I found that I was, as strong as many of the athletes, and eventually knocking out chin-ups in the gym. And so again, went through and got all of these certifications, put myself through university, personal training people in their homes. I'd be riding my bike to different homes and doing fitness sessions and working in the local fitness centers. And so for 20 years I did that. And I got to the point where I actually stopped going to fitness conferences because I was like, okay, been there, done that. I know this, I know that. Heart rate zone, how there's only so many ways you can, curl your
Sure.
biceps, and only so many things you can do on a stationary bike. And I thought I knew it all. And saw lots of clients, started managing a personal training team and working at boutique fitness studios and doing really well and enjoying it and still loving fitness. And then one day it all changed. Um, I was running the fitness department at a community center, and we got a call from someone named Sue Hitzman, the creator of the Melt Method. And Sue said, I'm going to be in your neighborhood teaching one of my trainings for the Melt Method. Is there any chance you'd be interested in exchanging 2 seats in the training for use of your auditorium? And I was kind of like, never heard of Sue, never heard of the Melt Method. I kind of know everything about fitness already, so maybe, let's see if I learn something new. So I got the permission to take the 2 days and attend the training and use the auditorium. And I spent 2 days learning from Sue Hitzman about fascia, about the nervous system, learning the beginner level of the Melt Method. And it pretty much made everything I'd learned up to that date obsolete, kind of made my degree obsolete. And it made me cringe a little bit at all the things that I was doing on the training room floor with my clients. And from that day forward, this is back in 2013, I did a deep dive into fascia and understanding fascia and really moving away from the traditional fitness training and prescriptions and protocols. And so over the last more than a decade, I've been studying fascia and implementing it within my personal training and within my fitness classes. So that's
Oh,
how
what a story, Shari. I mean, so you literally started all of this from high school. It sounds like
Yeah,
this has been a lifelong journey for you and almost kind of like a calling, it seems like. Would you agree with that?
absolutely. I loved it, lived it, and breathed it from 15 years old, and just kept growing and learning and certifications and courses and in the field practicing.
I'll I'll tell you, Shari, you're the personal trainer that I want. Like
Yeah.
that's the person that like literally breathes and sleeps the ideals that they're teaching. So it definitely sounds to me that you have been through a period of transition and transformation from the moment that you were in high school. You went from somebody that just got a 3 month gym membership. And honestly, I'll tell you this, Shari, I remember whenever I got my first gym membership, I was so excited about it. It was to a Planet Fitness. And I remember making a Facebook post about it, thanking everybody. And it was just like such a big step for me. And so once I ended up doing that and started getting into it, that's whenever I really started running a lot. I started doing a lot of cardio, started doing a lot of different, not so much weightlifting. I was that person that stood on the other side of the gym and was scared of of the dumbbells and the barbells and everything up there because I was like, I'm going to hurt myself. So I wish I would have known somebody like you back then because then I think it probably would have transitioned for me a little bit faster. But then, so you started doing all of this work on yourself. And then you said, you know what? This business school, it just ain't for me. I really want to get into more of the kinesiology side of things. So you ended up switching over into the human kinetics side and you ended up graduating from that. And then you went and you started off your career inside of personal training, studio ownership, business ownership, all these different things. And then you come across, was it Sue Hitzman, I believe was the name?
That's right.
And
Yeah.
she was the creator of that melt method. Now, tell me a little bit about the melt method and maybe like a paragraph or less of what exactly that is.
So the melt method is a self-care technique where myself and fellow melt instructors teach you how to identify areas in your body that you may have what we call stuck stress or dehydrated fascia. And then we use little tools, small balls, soft foam rollers, and we help you teach yourself to move hydration into those areas of dehydrated fascia to eliminate pain, stiffness, increase mobility, balance, stability. And so it's a self-care
I
technique. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And especially like from somebody that's coming from the neuromuscular side of the realm, I tell everybody and talk to everybody about fascial tissue quite a bit. Because whenever fascial tissue gets too tight, then it actually starts, there's this idea of tensegrity, right? And it's whenever fascial tissue gets tight, it starts pulling on different parts of the body and it starts creating pain patterns throughout either the fascial tissue itself, nerve tissue that might be innervating it, things of that sort. Now, whenever you talk about doing the home care, the self care piece of things, especially with the melt method, I've actually never heard of this before, so I'm learning something today also. Um, so, this melt method helps individuals that are probably very active being able to release this fascial tissue that is just so important that everybody forgets about. So, I'm just really curious though. I've done a little bit of research on you, and I've heard that you were probably like one of the first fitness bloggers before online wellness was even like a thing. Can you kind of talk to me about that a little bit? Did you talk about fascial tissue in this blog, or what was that about?
I started my fitness blog in 2009. And if you recall, WordPress wasn't, I think WordPress came out in 2007. So I was an
Hmm.
early adopter. I have, I think, one of the first Twitter or now X handles. So I was there and I was talking and typing about fitness and wellness and sharing everything that I was learning. So I didn't learn Melt till 2013. And so I was writing just general fitness and health and weight loss and toning and sculpting for the first few years. And then, yeah, it was 2013 when I started embracing fascia and fascia care. And only in the past few years have I really started writing and sharing information on my
Okay.
blog uh,
So I was just really
about
curious to
fascia.
see if there was like, I was curious to see if there was a transition in that at all and like what the response was with it. But for 20 years, prior to you kind of, I think that's right. If I can do math right. What did your practice actually look like? Were your clients getting results prior to? Because you said that everything that you learned after this melt method that you went through, you had a moment of pause to think, and you said almost everything that I've learned was kind of wrong. Were your clients getting results?
Yeah, they were definitely getting results because they were having, I was putting them through great workouts and intense workouts. And with my sort of little bodybuilding knowledge, people were getting sculpted and toning their muscles and losing weight. So, of course, all those things were happening. And as I started working with older populations, uh, and you've probably noticed the same thing, people get tighter and stiffer and more rigid. And I was still applying all of those things to my older clients, the stretching, the workouts, the heavier weights, and observing, but not really knowing how to adjust to the fact that ranges of motion are restricted. And it's not related to an injury. It's not related to anything that, the client knows what's wrong. It's just, oh, it doesn't quite work anymore. Many people, most clients, over 40 present with some type of mystery pain that has been there forever, or perhaps, rapid onset, recently onset. And the doctor and the physio don't quite know what's going on. So it's still a mystery. And so in my fitness programming, I really didn't have the tools to adapt to that. And I would just go in and modify the exercise so it didn't hurt anymore, or just choose a pain-free range of motion, and lots of stretching, partner-assisted stretching. So I spent many years
Hmm.
with my clients on the ground and leg up in the air and me cranking the hamstring back, and clients loved it. That partner-assisted stretching was very luxurious, and people did, they increase their flexibility, and especially somebody new to fitness. We saw so many changes, and people were making changes in their life, but I never really truly broke through until I understood fascia and the link between that tightness, the stiffness, the mystery pain, until I understood fascia. And a good example of this is I had one client. He was in his 80s. He was quite old, stiff, poor posture, hunched over. He was very, very prominently forward. And so back then my strategy was to have his hands up and me stand behind him and help him open up his pecs and pull back on his elbows. So he was stretching, and we would do long holds and a little bit of contract, relax, and breath work. And at the end of our 10 minutes of stretching and trying to open up the upper body, he'd breathe a little bit better. He'd sit up a little bit taller. But that forward posture wasn't related to an injury he had. Nothing that his physiotherapist was specifically targeting. It was just kind of old age and keep active. But now with my current fascia knowledge, I understand that no matter how hard I stretch those muscles, whether it's the hamstrings on my clients or their chest or anywhere, I know that their nervous system, their brain is not going to release the hold. If there's a part of their body that's dehydrated and not getting signals in, it goes into protective mode.
Hmm.
Corresponding our helper muscles are in there, locking in,
Hmm.
holding onto those muscles, and trainer Shari is not going to push or budge or breath work their way into relaxing. And it's the fascia work that helped me hydrate in those areas to allow the brain to say, oh, okay, I see some areas now that were kind of offline. Now I'm going to release some muscles so that they're not needed for that protection anymore. And then we see relaxation through the shoulders, through the neck, through hamstrings. Everything relaxes.
That's fantastic. So you told me at one point that you said that you believed force equaled success, right? And you literally just said that that's not the case at all. It's actually the complete opposite. And
Right.
so I'm kind of curious. You just walked me through the difference that you just made for somebody, right? Understanding like, hey, we're going to force this, but actually we probably shouldn't. There's other methods for us to be able to do this. So you said you used to stretch your clients one way, and now you use a completely different fascial technique. How did your clients react whenever you changed your approach? Did they trust it or did they resist it? Because normally in my practice, whenever I try to talk to somebody about something that seems a little different than what it is that they expected, they push back. And then I have to really educate and say, but actually the reason why that hamstring is hurting is because of this up here, because this down here. How how did you have those types of conversations with your clients?
Well, sadly, I wish I could go back and meet up with those clients again. I moved businesses and I moved countries. And so just when I started understanding fascia, I I'm from Canada and I lived in the USA now and did all my certifications in USA. And so now I'm practicing in USA now. So I look back at those clients and wish I could go back and apologize and show them the new way. Hopefully they found the new way. So I didn't get to see that really stark transition. But now when I have a new client, we do our stuck stress assessments and we look for dehydrated fascia through the body and along with our range of motion, and we address the stuck stress before we try to strengthen, try to load, try to twist, rotate, anything. My greatest joy is working now with people who walk in the door, who are doing their workouts, going to their other trainers, going to their fitness classes, uh, and they're just a little bit beat up and not getting the results that they want. They're not
Sure.
getting, they're getting beat up from their workouts. The mystery aches and pains and joint pains that they're not sure what the cause is, uh, are really limiting their lives, limiting their workouts, their classes, everyday life,
Hmm.
sitting at a desk
Yeah.
all day, just in pain. And so most of the people I see now are coming to melt with me or do fascia work or do a fitness routine that is reawakening fascia and hydrating and lengthening their fascia.
That's such a
So
cool method. And like what it is you just said, come melt with me. I love that. That's just such a good little hook on that. So when was the first time you saw fascia informed training do something traditionally, like, sorry, to do something different that traditional training just never could? Can you give me that moment?
I think the first time for me was after I had learned the method and I'd did the 2-day training, and was wowed and was just reading everything I could. I started offering because I was certified, little introductory workshops in the hand and foot treatment so just working on the fascia, just in the hands and the feet. And so I would do 30-minute little workshops with participants at the community center. And I remember teaching the little hand technique to one gentleman, and he stood there after, and he kind of stood there for a moment and looked around, and then he put his hands up over his head and he said, "Oh my gosh, I have not had my hands over my head in 3 years." And that one little mobilization technique, hydration technique, relaxed everything up through the neck, shoulders, the fascia. We moved hydration up the arms and the neck, and something released, something turned off. The brain said, "Hey, I see you now. I'm going to relax these muscles," and you have your range of motion back. And so for me, that was really powerful. And that was the one incident that made me say, "This, I'm onto something," because I hadn't just heard it, I
Hmm.
saw it happen before my eyes.
Yeah.
And I did a series of these little 30-minute workshops. It was like, "Hey, try this little fascia hand treatment." And I had people at the end of the day saying, "My back hasn't ached all day after we did just working on the fascia in our feet." And people having little mystery aches and pains going away. And I was like, I need to learn more about
There's
this.
something here. And that's
Yeah.
the thing. Like, I think and I can tell you right now, the listener that is listening to this right now is saying, no, that's not real. Before you hit the skip button, okay, before you hit the skip button, I want to jump in on this for just a second. Because what Shari is describing is exactly what I experience in my neuromuscular therapy practice, right? People come to me after years of training, years of physical therapy. The pain's still there. And whenever I get my hands on the tissue, it's normally not a muscle problem. It's a fascial restriction. And we learn these techniques called myofascial release techniques, which are MFR techniques. And a lot of people will come in and say, I need the deepest pressure you can give me. Like, I want to hurt the next day. To which I then say, wait a minute. Pain and that force doesn't always equal the success in the end. So I have to kind of teach them, re-educate them that, wait a minute, there's actually something a little bit more surface level here that we should work on first. And what we have to do is we have to open up that fascial tissue before that muscle can ever receive any type of work. So for the listener that's saying, wait a minute, this person after 30 minutes could raise their hand above above their head. I can actually attest to that because I've watched it happen also in my practice. So what we're saying is that the tissue is dehydrated. And Shari, I'm going to ask you to expand on what you mean by rehydrating the fascia here in a minute. But whenever it's dehydrated, we're saying that the nervous system is locked in, kind of like a holding pattern, if you will. And what Shari from the training side of things is, she's saying the same exact thing that I have found on the treatment side. So Shari, I just had to jump in for a second to be able to say, listen, guys, this is real. It is true. And because something you've done like you did something inside your hands now means that like your entire shoulder can possibly move again. It does happen. So Shari, you keep talking about rehydrating the fascial tissue. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about what that means and how it's different than the tissue actually being dehydrated?
Well, our fascia is this beautiful, wonderful magic tissue that envelopes every single structure in our body. So in fitness, we tend to think of myofascia, just the fascia around the muscles, but really it envelopes every organ, all of our vessels. There are multiple layers under the skin and all the way down to the bone. And so it's not necessarily just the muscles. And this fascial layer it's a fluid layer. Uh, it contains collagen fibers, contains elastin fibers, but ultimately it's a fluid layer, like a gel-like layer. And our fascia is in layers in the body, and there are fascial lines that sort of run crisscross up, down, deep and superficial. And when that fascia becomes dehydrated, uh, we lose signals to those areas. They can become hardened, just like a dried out sponge. There are pain receptors in the fascia, so we end up with this dry, hard sponge without fluid in it. It might feel dense under your fingers, painful to touch, and you are blocked off from metabolism, from hydration, from healing nutrients, and um, and as you know from your practice, most people can find on their body points of dehydration that
Sure
may
can.
not be linked to an everyday pain or ache that they have, but I'm sure you with your hands go in and discover those
Very
dehydrated
quickly.
spots.
Very
Yeah.
quickly. Everybody's like, wait, I didn't know that hurt there. And I was like, I did. And that's why we're here. Like, yeah, exactly. You're right. 100%.
Yeah,
So
and so
here's what I
this
want to so I want to dig into a little bit deeper here. Okay. So a lot of people listening probably go to the gym. They work with a trainer possibly, or they follow some type of online program, and they have no idea that like this system exists, right? This fascial system exists. So Shari, can you teach us what is fascia, right? We kind of broke it. We kind of already talked about that, but I think I want you to break it down a little bit further inside of how things actually move and why it's the missing link and what does it mean to actually hydrate the tissues.
Absolutely. So we already mentioned that it is a fluid layer. It is a gel-like layer, and I've heard it likened to maybe the consistency of like an aloe vera gel. So the fluid in your fascia it glides. It contains this substance called hyaluronic acid, which glides and allows our tissues to glide over top of each other. Whether it's our organs gliding over top of each other, muscles, joints, everything glides over top of each other. And so different things can cause the dehydration of that fascia. For example, poor posture, where the fascia cannot glide properly or flow properly along fascial lines, can compress tissues for long periods of time and dehydrate those tissues. And other examples are just compression, sitting too long, sitting on your butt too long. You are compressing the fluid out of your spongy tissue. I find, especially in women, if they take off their clothing, you can still see the imprints of their clothing, bra lines and underwear lines. So the compression of the clothing, there are so many different things in our life that actually compress, and over long term, uh, decompress or compress the fluid out of the fascia tissue, and it gets hard and dry.
Hmm. So whenever somebody's trying to rehydrate something like that, though, how should they go about doing it?
So most people say, first off, I drink lots of water, or should I drink more water? And that's not necessarily going to reach the fascial level. Uh, in the melt method, our strategy is to identify those areas in your body that are pain, tight, sore, tender. And unlike traditional foam rolling or myofascial work, where you're kind of pounding on your sore spots or ironing out or rolling over your sore spots and tender spots, in melt we just gently nudge fluid into those areas, and so we use soft foam rollers, soft balls, and tools to nudge hydration into those areas, combined with a little bit of rolling to break up any adhesions.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we do in Melt. And I know I've been looking at a number of different modalities for breaking down those adhesions and rehydrating. And there are a number of different things out there
There
for doing
really are.
that.
There's so much out there, and I mean, if you name it, there's probably a certification in it. That's kind of how much there is out there at this time. So Sherry, tell me a little bit further about you brought up the fact that most people say, "Hey, I drink a lot of water," or "I am drinking a lot of water." What do you mean my fascial tissues are dehydrated? And let's just kind of turn it into a brief case study, if you will, for just a brief second. Let's say we have somebody that's in their early 40s coming in. They they drink at least 2 liters of water a day, and they're saying, Brad, I still have, or Sherry, Brad, Sherry, I still have this pain that's happening, and I'm having a hard time being able to flex at my hip. And we put them through all the different exercise training. What are they called? Tests, if you will. I go through and I do some special orthopedic training, and neither of us can really figure out exactly where this is stemming from. So then, Sherry, you're like, wait a minute, this is possibly a fascial issue. Let's kind of dive into that a little bit. So we start talking, we start doing some of the tests and things of that sort that are there. And this individual all of a sudden now has the ability, after treatment, has this ability to flex at their hip. So what changed what is it that we would have done that changed the outcome for this individual that would have been different from any other style modality that could have tried to fix them, if you will?
So what we would have done is a couple of little things. We may have, through a little bit of compression, rolling or just held compression, we may have broken down some dehydrated collagen fibers, which are hardened and firm, giving that sort of feeling of maybe a knot under the skin, or pain on movement in a tissue, or pain on movement, and breaking that down. And then we would move fluid in to that area, sort of flushing it. And by reintroducing fluid into an area, we uh, allow that electrical communication system with the brain to find that area. So our brain is like our GPS, and it is sort of scanning the body at all times via the fascial system, via an electrical system, and we're hearing that communication system now is actually possibly faster than through the spinal cord back to our brains. So we have that communication to this newly hydrated area, which allows the surrounding muscles, to relax, to sort of give up their hold if it's around a joint, uh, and allow range of motion to return back to the joint. So it's signaling through the water,
Okay.
through the fascial
Okay.
fluid.
So what you're saying is, like, fascia is is one of the communication networks for the body, right? So can you explain to the listener, like, they have never heard the word before, okay? Like, what does it do exactly, right? So I always have this hard time being able to explain to my patients what fascia is. The best way I'm able to explain it is say, okay, let's pretend that we have a double bagged groceries situation, right?
Mhm.
And you're putting your groceries into this double bag. Now, the groceries on the inside are actually the muscle. Then we have like this coating that goes around the muscle, right? And then in between that coating and the extra bag is kind of what we call this fascial tissue, or this fascial layer. Can you kind of explain to my patients, if you will, what exactly is fascia and where is it found in the body, and why is it so important for those electrical communication networks? And why has fitness been ignoring it for so long if it's this important?
First of all, fitness has been ignoring it because everyone has been ignoring it.
Mm,
Traditional anatomy, when I look at my textbooks from the 2000s, we didn't really look at the fascia. We just kind of peeled it aside to get into the muscles and the tendons and the nerves and neurons, which we believed were controlling movement and posture and alignment and stability, not recognizing the signaling that's happening through the fascia. And so, yeah, most people have forgotten about it. In fact, the International Congress on Fascial Research was only created in 2007. So it hasn't been very long that there's been a lot of time, energy, research, and money put into studying fascia on its own. And a lot of that research is happening right now. It hasn't made it into academia. So again, it's not just fitness that ignored it. It was kind of generally lost. And so what's truly happening is we, sorry, what was the original question? We were looking at
Yeah,
what
you're so
exactly
fine.
is happening. Uh,
Yeah, so what
so
exactly is fascia? Explain it to somebody as if they've never really heard the word.
so the best example that I use is if you've ever prepared a piece of raw chicken breast and you have peeled that white, clingy sheath from your chicken breast, that is a piece of fascial tissue. And that's really good, a really good example of the nature of fascia. So it's a couple of things. It's like a scaffolding, it's like structure. It's got the collagen fibers that create that structure. It has elastin fibers, which allow a little bit of springiness and elastic energy. And it's fluid, it's wet, and it glides underneath your fingers. So you can imagine that chicken breast is just one muscle surrounded in fascia. So that beautiful tissue allows that muscle to glide around the muscles around it, the joints, organs, if that's the case. And so the fascia holds us in place. It allows for movement and going back to its original shape. It allows for just everything to smoothly glide around itself and around the other structures. It allows for hydration into the area, and like we talked about, communication. They call it a communication superhighway, and so it does a lot of things, not just one. But that the chicken breast kind of gives people that visual, and so if you imagine just a little patch of that tissue or that fabric encompassing a muscle or a structure in the body, uh, any tightness, knotting, adhesions, fascia can adhere to other tissues, to itself, to bone. And adhesion affects communication, and it affects the movement and the gliding of all of the surrounding tissue. And so we want to keep it fluid and gliding for pain reduction, for mobility, for just overall body movement.
Hmm. So it sounds to me that fascia kind of rules the body in a lot of ways. Now, you and I kind of talked prior to everything that fascia kind of is the core of a lot of the human body. Now, what I kind of want to understand a little bit more on is how does fascia, posture, nervous system, all those things, how do they all connect? Because most people kind of think of those as three separate topics rather than them each kind of integrating together.
So our nervous system, when our fascia is dehydrated and we are not getting messages into areas of our body that are dehydrated, it could be, a patch on the side of your leg, it could be deep in the shoulder girdle, that's preventing the arm from moving. There are so many other areas that have to turn on to provide stability for that area. And so we end up with um, so much of our nervous system turned on, embracing to support areas that are sort of off the radar or offline. And so we do end up with nervous system fatigue. And a good example of that is after a session, probably that you see it with your clients. After I do, melt classes or other fascial work with people, they just kind of literally melt into the ground. There's sort of a melting and a relaxation and a little bit of an energetic buzz because we have allowed the brain or GPS system to reconnect to multiple areas in the body electrically via the fascia and and relax a number of other areas. So we kind of melt physically into the ground, but we also kind of turn down the volume on our nervous system a little bit.
Mm. So you're saying that turning down the volume on the nervous system can help with posture? Is that what I'm hearing?
Definitely. I think helping posture turns down the volume of the nervous system. We Most people that I know today spend way too much time forward posture, shoulders forward, rib cage collapsed, and there's so much work that it takes the muscular system, the nervous system to walk through life when we are in this permanent position. And so as we hydrate areas of the fascia and allow the body return to its ideal stacking, head over shoulders, over torso, then we are turning off all those unnecessary muscles that are holding and gripping. Ultimately, we get fascial adhesions building up to provide stability, to hold the head up, to keep the shoulders functioning. So that's sort of my take at this point on how we affect the nervous system.
Interesting.
And
So for me specifically, let's say that I'm training daily. I am running. I'm a very active individual. How often should somebody like me be kind of focusing on this fascial release and this fascial work?
I think we all need regular ongoing fascia care. Because our lifestyle dehydrates our fascia. If we're sitting all day, if we have repetitive postures, if we are wearing restrictive clothing, if we do have injuries that have altered the fascial laying down or scar tissue, we always need to support our nervous system. So or our fascial system and keep it hydrated. So I think we all need a regular fascia care practice. And I think we'll
Hmm.
see a lot more of that in terms of, things we can do at home, classes we can go to, things incorporated into our fitness sessions. Uh, a lot of times when people come in and they see me and I will ask them, hey, do you have any pain or tenderness or what are you noticing? Or I'll ask them, hey, how are the backs of the thighs or the shoulders? And they're like, "Oh, fine, no pain, no discomfort." And then I get them on a roller or something,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, "Oh," and they find all of these intense tender spots throughout their body that you know all about this, that they didn't
Mm-hmm.
know they had. They weren't
Yeah.
aware that there was a dehydration and congestion in those spots. People have no idea how much is going on in their body. And so, a first start would be identify through different techniques and assessments where in your body you are dehydrated, where you do have fascia. Most people have clues. Stiffness is a clue that your fascia might not be getting as much flow through it and energy through it. Like we talked about mystery pains or aches or joints that are just not working right. Most of us do need to tend to our tissue at some point or somewhere in the body, and then just continue with it every time we do a workout, supporting our fascia with recovery by helping those fascial lines stay open so we have movement and flow through the fascial lines for healing, for recovery, um, just for communication. So it really is, maybe everyone needs to do it. Start intense, sort of figure out where you need it, and then we just need a little fascia practice, whether it's just a quick little fascia hydration technique uh, here and there, or a full on hands on with a practitioner class. We all need it.
Hmm. And I agree with you tenfold on this. I don't believe people do enough fascial work. I don't believe massage therapists do enough fascial work. And I think that's the reason why a lot of people don't get results. And I think that's why whenever people come in to see me and they're like, whoa, how were you able to do that? It's because everything operates together, right? Because the moment that we can start to release that to get the proper signals back to the musculature, then now at that point, that dysfunction probably is going to shift to more of a function. And then at that point, now we're actually going to start addressing the different issues inside of the actual muscle a from a microbiology level of the myosin, the actin, and all those things, and how we're trying to stretch, release, and strip through all of that to rebuild. So what you're saying is that number one, we're just not doing it enough. Number two, we should do it more. And that that all we have to do is just start with something really simple, right? So someone is listening right now, stuck probably between chronic tension and their performance goals. They just heard both of us kind of on the same side with the same problem say the same exact thing. Now what, Shari? So let's get practical here for a second. So let's say they're sitting in their car and they went to the gym this morning. They're sore. They've been sore for months, probably. And your takeaway is hydrate your tissues, right? Which is what you're saying. We need to hydrate them. That's what this fascial work does. Can you make that real for that person? What's the first thing that they should do? I'm not looking for like a whole complete program overhaul or anything, because what we just said and what you just said was we just need to start with a daily practice. What can they do maybe tonight?
Tonight. So first thing, before tonight, I do think that the gold standard is to have a fascia-informed manual therapist get their hands on you and really identify what's going on in your body and move hydration into those areas and break down those adhesions. To go home tonight on your own, I think the first step would be just doing a little body scan and identify truly what is going on with your body and look for some clues that your fascia might be dehydrated. And that could be, like we talked about, mystery pain spots. It could be joints that maybe feel clunky, aren't quite working smoothly. It could be pain on movement. It could be end ranges of motion when you're stretching that feel maybe asymmetrical. One side you can move this far, the other side, you can't move as far. You can look at your skin. If you have cold spots on your skin, even when you're really warm, that might indicate some congestion in there at the fascial level. You can look at even for like cellulite, we're linking cellulite to fascial adhesions. So just noticing all of these things in your body is the first thing. And you can even just lie down on the ground and just notice how your body is connected to the ground on a mat, and just look for asymmetries and how your body is weighting to the ground. And then from there, there's so many different fascial hydration techniques. Some are just gentle lengthening techniques where we can just elongate the fascia. It sort of works, those fascial lines, when you stretch them out, there's almost sort of when you're fully stretched, that recoil almost invites hydration back into those areas. So a good whole body just stretching, lengthening, elongating would be a quick little way to invite hydration into the body without tools and techniques and someone's hands on
Of
you.
course. Yeah, and that's definitely something that I think a lot of people forget too, is what you just said, is that they actually have the tools themselves to be able to start this kind of work. And whenever people call me at my business and they tell me this story of everything that's happened to them, and they say, oh, well, I've been to this physician, now I'm at pain management. And they're like, I can't be fixed, but I'm just looking for some relief. First off, I always correct and say, we don't fix people, right? We just help the body heal itself. And we're not miracle workers. We're just body workers is what I say. And, but once we have that conversation, I say, what are you doing now? And a lot of them have to stop and think and say, well, I'm not doing a whole lot of much. And I'm like, okay, well, let's kind of start somewhere. So between now and like this next week, right? Because I tend to be booked out like a week and a half, 2 weeks. I'll say, this is what it is I'd like you to start doing to kind of prepare the body for whenever you're coming in. And a lot of it is exactly what it is that you just said. And for the listener that's out there right now, what I want you to hear from what Shari has just said is that you do have a soft spot to start. It's very easy. You just do the body scan that she's talking about. And you can either start at the tip of your head, the bottom of your toes, and then you work your way up inside the body to be able to understand, where do I feel this tension? Why do I feel this tension? Is it pain? Try to name the pain. Try to actually give it a color. I found sometimes giving it a color is a really good way psychologically to be able to kind of figure out what's happening. And then you just work your way up the body. But Shari just gave an even bigger picture on that, where she said, look for asymmetries, how your body's laying on the ground. And that's a piece that I've not actually told my clients to do. And that's brilliant, because whenever you're laying flat on the ground, you can tell very quickly, is one leg longer than the other one? Is it up higher? Do I feel like my back is kind of crooked? Do I feel like my neck isn't relaxing? Right? These are all things right there that you can start mentally storing away to say, okay, this is where it is I need to start. And then, Shari, you said now they just need to kind of work on kind of stretching and lengthening kind of things. What is it that they can do there? Is it like an actual stretch? Are we talking about stretching the muscle? What are we talking about with that?
It's a little bit nuanced, and maybe stretching is the wrong word because it takes us back to traditional
Of
fitness and
course.
stretching and flexibility where people are leaning over and pulling on their toes and twisting. Uh, when we're looking at fascia, ideally we want to lengthen. And that's different from stretching because our fascia doesn't work in straight lines. It's not like a bicep, which is here to here and we want to lengthen. Our fascia is super connected and it travels in spirals, and we have spiraling along the front and back and deep. So a lengthening movements are generally just elongating the body in just gentle, long, full body twists. Uh, so it takes a bit to learn the different techniques um, to get into the fascial lines. The other thing you can do is a little bit of gentle compression, even if it's with your hands. Perhaps you recommend the same thing with clients. If they do have a tender
I sure
spot,
do.
you can sort of give it some love, just a little bit of gliding over top, just gently, and just kind of assess where it is. And we don't necessarily want to take that adhesion or that tender spot and smack it and pound it, but you could just do a little bit of cross friction, even just with your own hands, and invite hydration into that area. Sort of a combination of breaking down, maybe some dried out collagen fibers and or adhesions, and uh, and then invite that fluid in, and just with your hands, just sort of move fluid from the surrounding areas into that area. It shouldn't be super painful
Let's
until
say it's
you get
just
a
that.
practitioner going deep. But
Sure, exactly. It's a different
yeah,
story. And I tell everybody, don't do that because I'm trained to know how far to go. You are not, right? So,
yeah.
but Shari, it really is just that simple. It really is just that simple. And I think my last question for you here is to understand, why is it that the simple things always seem to be the hardest? And I know that we kind of talked about people trying to have a daily practice there, and kind of where to start was just kind of starting with that full body scan. I know doing that daily might seem to some people that they're just wasting their time, right? They might be like, oh, nothing's changing. I'm trying to lengthen, but I'm not lengthening enough, I guess. And what would be your piece of advice to the people that say, oh, that's just too simple? It can't be that easy.
So I've had people who've gone through some fascia hydration, and they'll get on under the roller or do some of the techniques, and they'll say, "Oh, I don't feel anything. What is it working?" And so those are the people that are always hardest to convince. It's the people who have, yeah, it's the people who have pain, even if it's pain that you just showed them, they just discovered with you, that little bit of compression and that awareness, like, oh, something's going on under here that I didn't know about. I really want to address it. And so I explain to people that everything we're doing is just gentle and subtle, and you may not feel water, hydration, this fascial fluid, this hyaluronic acid. You may not feel it moving along into that area, um, but trust that it is, and you will notice when you get up and walk around that maybe that hip doesn't click anymore, or maybe you're standing a little bit taller, or you just have more energy, or your head fog goes away, or you're just pain free. So it's so nuanced. You may not notice again it right away or instantly. It's going to be sort of a lot up the stream a little bit what you notice. So just look for things. But I do find that most people feel something right away. They feel a release, a reduction in pain. They feel a little bit more mobility. They feel a little bit more relaxed when they get some hydration into long dehydrated areas.
It's fantastic. Well, Shari, it's been Sherry. Wow, I don't know where that came from. Sherry, this has been absolutely incredible. This is a conversation I wish I could have with every single patient who walks into my office. So tell me, where can people find you?
You can find me writing on my blog at www.sharizisk.com. And on the socials, I'm Trainer Shari on Instagram and on X, and Shari Zisk on Facebook.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again so much for coming on the show. I've learned a lot. I'm actually excited to stay connected with you to be able to learn a little bit more about this thing that we call fascia. It's definitely something that's slowly being demystified throughout health, wellness, and everything of that sort. So again, thank you so much.
You are so welcome. Thank you for having me. And I think we live close to each other, so I hope you'll join me for a little fascia session one day.
You bet. All right, before you go, here is what I want you to take from today. Shari Zisk has a degree in human kinetics. She spent 20 years as a successful personal trainer. Her clients were getting stronger. They were hitting their numbers. And she still had the courage to look at her own work and say, I'm missing something. Most people never do that. What she found was fascia, though, the communication network of our entire body. The system that connects every muscle, every joint, every nerve. And when she started hydrating that system instead of forcing it, everything changed. Pain decreased. Strength improved. Performance stopped being a fight and started being a flow. Here's what that means for you, though. If you've been doing the work and you're still in pain, you're not broken. You're not weak. Your body's not failing you either. It is trying to tell you something. And the answer might not be more reps or heavier weight. It might be one thing nobody ever taught you to take care of. Hydrate your tissues, people. Listen to your body and stop trying to force your way through something that was never meant to be forced. If this changed how you think about your body, send it to someone who needs it. The person grinding and hurting and blaming themselves. They deserve to know there's another way. I'll see you next time. This is Pain to Performance. Before we take off, one quick housekeeping thing. This podcast is for education and conversation only. I'm in no way a licensed therapist, doctor, wizard, and this show is not a substitute for care from a qualified professional. If something today made you think of someone you know, go ahead and do them a favor and send this episode their way. Pain is rarely a solo experience, and a good conversation is better shared. And if you're enjoying the show, make it official. Follow, subscribe, leave a review. It helps more than you realize and keeps this conversation going. Remember, the hardest part of Pain to Performance is learning how to listen. Now, I'll be here, same place, next play, and I can't wait to welcome you in.